everybody, this is Chuck Marone with Strong Towns. I did a video that generated a lot of questions, and it was very confusing to me. We talked about how to fund transit, and I think the title of the video that my team gave it was something like, "Here's how to fund transit." And I thought I said in the video how you fund transit, and then the questions that all y'all had was, well, how do you actually fund transit? So I'm taking this upon myself. This is not you, this is me. There were enough people who said like, hey, what's going on? That I feel like I have to answer this question, and it's very fair. So let me do that. Hey, how you doing? So in that video, I talked about ways we have funded transit in the past. I talked about the railroads having two kind of different arms. One arm would be a development company, one arm would be an operations company. I talked about how you do land development in order to do that. I talked about how in other countries they buy up the land around the stops, they develop them, they sell the land back at post-development prices, and they use that money to finance the transit. And then I talked about the way we would do it here in America, which is through the assessment process. Now let me explain what assessments are, because I think sometimes we get a little bit locked in. So general assessments are things that cities are allowed to do, cities across the entire United States. This actually comes from the Constitution. You're empowered, government is powered. They can't take your property. Oh, we got a drag stripper here. They can't take your property unless they give you just compensation. Your money is your property as well. There's ways we can tax your money, but we can't directly take your money unless we provide you compensation. And the assessment process is how you do this. When we go out and we say you have a gravel road in front of your house, and we go out and we pave it. When we pave that road, there's a cost for that, and there's also value added to your property. We can, the government, we collectively through the government, can collect payment from you in the amount that we increase your property value. So if we go out and spend $10,000 putting a paved road in front of your place, and that increases your property value by $10,000, we can turn around and assess you $10,000 and use that money to pay for the road. That's a process that's widely used. It's used everywhere. Every city does this. It's very, very common. It's very common with sewer, water systems, roads. Where it's not common is in transit. It's also not common when we do federal infrastructure like bridges or overpasses or interchanges. You see the new interchange go in, and then, you know, all the land speculators around there are the people here in my hometown. You got a bunch of like old landowners that owned a bunch of land because their ancestors homesteaded it years ago. And all of a sudden they're multimillionaires because the state opted to run a highway past their property and put an access point there. These things are today gifts to landowners. We run a transit line out and we put a stop, and everybody within walking distance of that transit stop, their property becomes more valuable. And what do? We just allow them to keep that value, right? We go out and we put in an interchange, and all that interchange makes all the properties more valuable. What do we allow them to do? They just keep that value. And now they can sell land around that interchange to Walmart or Costco, wherever it is, and make a lot of money. And we call that the private sector when it's actually like government subsidization. We have such a messed up system of funding transportation, including and especially transit. And transit advocates in some ways are the worst because they just want the train so bad. They just want the public investment so bad. They just want the government to come in and build the thing that they've always desired and they've always wanted. And so they tend to not worry about what comes next. They say, if you build this, then things will develop. And what happens is things don't develop. You get NIMBYs in the neighborhood going, hey, I don't want that apartment there. I don't want that thing there. You get, all these tax subsidies that are in place to make things happen. This is what we see all the time when we do these big transit projects. What should happen, and this is how you would do it in an American context, because we're not going to go, government's not going to go buy all the land. It's not how we do things. Government's not going to go acquire by eminent domain all the land. It's not how we do things. The way we do things here in America is you do a general assessment. And if you're going to put in a $100 million transit stop, you would step back and you would say, how much is this increasing the value of all these properties around this stop? And then they would get a bill for their share of that amount. Say your property is going up by $50,000. Here's your bill for $50,000. Now, cities will finance these things. Sometimes they'll finance them over 5 years. Sometimes they'll finance them over 20 years. Cities get really favorable rates on this stuff. So financially actually doesn't work out to be that bad. But what this does is it creates an impetus, like a motivation. I've got a $50,000 bill I got to pay now. I can't sit on this house. I can't sit on this property. I got to do something. I got to make some better use of it. I have to make something happen. And if you wonder why we don't do private assessments, this is why we don't do them. Because from a transit standpoint, if the government actually collected the value that it created, most transit projects would not happen. Because the reason they happen is because the landowners that benefit get all the benefit, all the money, all the value, all the use of the transit. And then they can resist the downside, the redevelopment, all that. We have to pair those two. And what it means is that we will do fewer projects, I think initially, right? We'll do fewer projects initially, but we will do better projects. And once we get good at doing this, what we'll see is that transit is a wealth multiplier. And when we put it in the right place, the right incentives through the assessment process, we will not only get all kinds of transit, we will get all kinds of great development with it when the two are married together.